Good evening to all of you. Today we are going to discuss on the second chapter of paper number 8, that is security concerns and regional organizations. In today's lecture, we are discussing about two security alliances or two security groups in the world. The first one is NATO and the other one is Quad. Before starting to our discussion, let us make a quick recap and quick overview to our today's lecture. In today's lecture, we will discuss about the key drivers for security arrangements. Then we will discuss why there is a need to have security arrangements in global politics. After which, we will discuss about our first regional security arrangement, that is NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in which, first of all, we will discuss about the Cold War scenario. Later, we will discuss how the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is NATO, has its own organizational structure, how it has changed over the period of time, particularly after the post-Cold War era. Later, we will discuss what are the achievements of NATO in past 75 years. And lastly, in this section, we will discuss whether India should join North Atlantic Treaty Organization or not. After that, we will discuss about our another regional security arrangement, that is Quad. First of all, we will focus on key objectives and principles of Quad. Later, we will discuss how the Quad as a security arrangement has been functioning. Later, we will discuss what are the outcomes of Quad. Then we will discuss about its limitations and challenges before it. And finally, we will conclude the discussion with relevance of Quad as an organization for India. So, to start with, let us consider what are the key drivers for security arrangements in the world politics. So, as we have discussed in our fourth paper, that is international politics, that in international scenario, there are two prominent views. The first view is about realism and the other view is about liberalism. The realist view for international politics believes that there is continuous struggle for power in the global politics. And this struggle for power has led international politics or international order into the state of anarchy. There is a state of anarchy where no one rules another person. Everyone is struggling with each other and there is complete chaos around the global politics. Due to which we can see that there is no central authority in international politics. Apart from this, global actors like state or nation have their own security dilemma. This situation has led to develop security arrangement in the global politics. Another reason is that there is continuous balance of power in global politics, which has developed collective defense and power balancing system, and it has developed some alliances and treaties so that there should be a balanced or there should be an equilibrium among contending powers. Also, there is a system of collective security around the global politics, which means that there is economic interdependence among global powers and there are certain security arrangements that secure trade and energy security in the international scenario. This has caused collective security in the international order. Similarly, there are certain global threats and challenges. In modern world, there are certain modern security threats such as terrorism, cyber attacks, poaching, and so on. These threats are global in the nature, and for to tackle with these challenges and these threats, there is a need to have security arrangements. Apart from this, there is growing humanitarian concern around the world as the world is leading to civil war, unrest, political chaos, and terrorism. These issues are causing humanitarian concern around the world. Finally, there are certain issues for regional stability due to which we can see that there are numerous security arrangements functioning all around the world. So we can say that there are certain key drivers for security arrangement in the global politics. To move further, we can say that why there is a need for security arrangement in international politics. We can list three factors or three reasons. The first reason can be there is a need to maintain global peace, stability, and cooperation in the global politics. Secondly, security arrangements as an institution or an organization provide a framework so that countries can address their common security concern, common threats, and they can prevent conflicts and manage their crisis. So there are another reasons that cause that require security arrangement in international politics. Another reason is there is a necessity for security arrangement so that various factors which are intrinsic to international system can be discussed. So in present international politics, we can see three major security arrangements which are dealing with security issues. The first one is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is NATO. It was formed in 1949 and it is based on the principle of collective defense or collective security. It was formed or it was established in Cold War period and it has played a pivotal role throughout throughout past 75 years. Presently, it is addressing security challenges with, dealing with terrorism, cyber threat, and regional conflict. The Article 5 of NATO discusses about the collective security principle. Then we have another security arrangement, that is United Nations. It was established in 1945 and it provides a complete and comprehensive framework for the international security and international cooperation. There is a mechanism called Security Council which addresses issues regarding security and conflict. Also, there are other mechanisms like UN peacekeeping missions or UN peacekeeping operations which address conflict-related issues. Apart from this, we have another organization, that is European Union. European Union is an economic union or economic organization. However, it has devised its own security mechanism. The mechanism is known as Common Security and Defense Policy or CSDP. This mechanism addresses security related challenges. So, with this brief overview, we are moving to discuss our first regional organization, that is NATO or North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So, we should take a brief background to the Cold War period. The Second World War ended in 1945, and with the end of Second World War, there was a global turmoil around the world. The situation caused fall of European power and emergence of two superpowers, which are USA and USSR. USA is a capitalist country and it advocates democracy. On the other hand, USSR is a communist country and it advocates socialism or communism as, as its policy. However, even though US and USSR were the allies in Second World War, but with the end of Second World War, both of these superpowers started to compete with each other, and this led to develop a Cold War situation. See, Cold War situation is a situation where two or more contending powers are struggling with each other, but the struggle is latent in nature. It is not evident or it is not manifest in nature. Due to which the entire period of 1945 to 1991 is known as Cold War period. With the opening of Cold War, there was a fear among the US policymakers that USSR is spreading its influence in the Western European region. To curtail USSR, US policymakers devised a policy of containment. This policy was a foothold, or this policy was a hurdle, or this policy was a break for the USSR's advancement in Western European region. Secondly, there was a Treaty of Dunkirk which was signed between UK and France. This Treaty of Dunkirk was a mutual defense agreement against USSR and German aggression in the European region. Similarly, there was a Truman Doctrine which was proposed by Harry Truman, President of USSR. He believed that the countries which are resisting communism should be supported, and that's why US should engage itself in the European politics. This policy is known as Truman Doctrine. Similarly, in 1948, there was a Treaty of Brussels which was signed between Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The Treaty of Brussels formed a Western Union which acted as a collective defense mechanism against German aggression and growing Soviet threat. Lastly, there was a Marshall Plan propounded by US policymakers, which was supporting economic aid and assistance to those Western European countries which are rebuilding themselves in the post-World War scenario. So, with the brief introspection or brief introduction of these circumstances, we see that there was a conflicting situation between US and USSR that was causing ideological, economic, scientific, and similar conflicts in all domains around the world. This was creating proxy wars around the world, due to which US decided to enter into agreement with Atlantic countries or North Atlantic countries, and due to which in 1949, countries like Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK, and US signed a treaty. This treaty is also known as Washington Treaty, and due to which North Atlantic Treaty Organization was formed in 1949. There are three major articles in Washington Treaty which define the nature and functioning of North Atlantic Treaty Organization: Article 3, Article 4, and Article 5. Among which The fifth article or Article 5 stipulates that if there is an armed attack against any member of NATO, the same attack will be termed or it will be considered that it is attack on the one member or it is the attack on all member. Attack on one member can be considered as attack to all members. That is collective principle. With this, North Atlantic Treaty Organization started to function. So, as we have discussed that North Atlantic Treaty Organization is a mechanism that functions on collective security principle. It was an outcome of Cold War politics or Cold War security dilemma between US and USSR. In subsequent period, USSR also developed its own collective security mechanism. It was known as Warsaw Agreement or Warsaw Pact. So, Warsaw and NATO are contending two security arrangements that functioned throughout the Cold War period. However, with the disintegration of USSR, the relevance of Warsaw Pact was subsided, and that's why it ceased to operate after the Soviet disintegration. However, North Atlantic Treaty Organization could not cease to end even after the end of Cold War, and it has redeveloped and redesigned its functions and purpose over the period of time. So, when we discuss about North Atlantic Treaty Organization as a security arrangement, we can find that there is a certain and definite organizational structure through which NATO is operating. In NATO, there are North Atlantic Council, there is the Security General, there is the Military Committee, there are Allied Commando Operations, and also there are Allied Command Transformations. So, these five components act in unison as NATO's organizational structure. Each component has its own function, and these components are working through or in the ambit of NATO as a mechanism. So, as we have discussed, even after the end of Cold War period, NATO is still functioning. And how it is still functioning? As we have discussed that NATO was an outcome of Cold War contestation between USSR and US. So many critics have discussed or many critics have viewed that there is no need for NATO after the end of Cold War. However, NATO has redesigned itself over the period of time, and after 1991, NATO has designed Partnership for Peace program. This program was aimed to build cooperative relationship between members of Warsaw Pact and other non-members so that NATO can expand itself. Secondly, NATO adopted NATO enlargement program through which NATO gave membership to many other countries. As of now, NATO has 31 members. Finland is the last member of NATO which gained its membership in 2024. Similarly, NATO has invoked crisis management operations in post-Cold War period, among which there are examples of Bosnia and Herzegovina crisis. There is an example of Kosovo crisis. So these are certain examples of post-Cold War transformation, which denote that even today there is a need for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So how NATO is addressing these challenges or these changes? See, in 21st century, NATO has adopted certain changes in its policy. Today, NATO is addressing few global security challenges, among which terrorism, cyber threat, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction are key issues. Secondly, NATO has launched War on Terrorism in 2001, where it used Article 5, that is, collective security principle, for the first time over the period of time. It never used Article 5 or collective security principle throughout the period. Afghanistan crisis was the first of its example. In 2001, NATO launched International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, where NATO supported the Afghan government and it helped to combat the insurgency in Afghanistan. Similarly, NATO has involved strategic rebalancing program in its policy, where there is adaptation of new security concept, new strategic concept in the global changing security environment. So these are two different views or two associated views where we can say that there is a still growing need for North Atlantic Treaty Organization even after the post-Cold War scenario. Now, we are in the 75th year of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In 2024, it was developed in 1949 and it is celebrating its 75th year now. So, what are the achievements of North Atlantic Treaty Organizations? First of all, North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO has acted as a collective security mechanism in the Cold War period. It helped all European powers and other countries to combat against different ideologies. It acted as a deterrent in the Cold War period. Secondly, NATO has succeeded in controlling militarized conflict in Central and Eastern Europe. There were several instances where after the disintegration of Soviet power, Central and Eastern European countries were undergoing through militarized conflict after 1991. However, NATO intervened in such conflicts and it succeeded to seize all those military conflicts. Then NATO has succeeded in stabilization of Western Europe. It stabilized Western Europe through its Marshall Plan, through its containment policy, and financial aid in other nature also. Similarly, NATO has succeeded as the best tool in crisis management operation. NATO provided support to other countries in their crisis management. To give an example, in 2005, there was an earthquake in Kashmir where NATO helped through its forces. Similarly, there are several counter-terrorism operations in Somalia where NATO successfully intervened and managed the crisis. NATO has succeeded to invoke the collective security principle only once throughout the 75 years. It never used collective security principle repetitively. It is the achievement of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Lastly, the achievement of NATO can be said that it has publicly denounced US invasion, Russian invasion on Ukraine, and thus it has acted as a balancer against Russia in 2023-2024. So these are certain achievements of North Atlantic Treaty Organizations. Over the period of time, there are discussions that India also should join North Atlantic Treaty Organization. However, India never showed its willingness in Cold War period because India strictly abided non-alignment policy. See, non-alignment policy denotes that country, particularly India and its allied countries, which are non-aligned countries, will never move either capitalist group or communist group. It will follow neutral policy wherever, whenever required, and it will follow the neutral policy. Also, it will be on the just side. Whenever there is a need, a non-aligned country will be on the just side. It will not jump to another side for the sake of its own benefit or for the sake of its own interest. So, due to which India never entered into NATO as a member in the Cold War period. However, with the end of Cold War, India moved to US as its ally. India gained assistance from US, and this gave a sign that India will join North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Over past few days, there are also discussion for the same, but there is an issue whether India should join NATO or not. So there is a debate. The debate that supports India joining for NATO. There are cases to support India joining as a joining for the membership of NATO, where it can be said that there is an end of Cold War and there is no need to support non-aligned movement or the ideology of non-aligned movement. Secondly, there is a growing need to combat terrorism. See, terrorism is India's intrinsic issue where India needs to solve jointly. And that's why it is said that India should join NATO. Thirdly, it is said that all member partners of NATO are well established and India's participation in NATO can be beneficial financially and militarily also. Lastly, it is said that in order to contain China, India must join North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So with the help of NATO, India can successfully create a balance against China. So these are certain cases in the favor of joining NATO. However, there are certain cases against joining NATO as a member. It is said that Russia is an ally of India for the long time, and after the acquiring membership in NATO, there will be a clash between India and Russia. Secondly, India's participation in NATO can create long-term issue as NATO's present policy is chiefly based on global war on terror and it can be problematic. It can lead several conflicts for India around the world. Lastly, India's participation in NATO can be an hazard. It can be a problem for India's sovereignty and India's principle of non-alignment. So these are certain issues which either support or which either reject India's participation in North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So with this, we are concluding the discussion on North Atlantic Treaty Organization as a security mechanism. Now, we are moving to our second discussion, that is Quad or Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. So what is Quadrilateral Security Dialogue? See, Quad is an informal security and strategic forum where members like United States, India, Australia and Japan are the members. Quad is the combination of these four members. It is a security and strategic forum. It is informal in nature. The objective of Quad is to work for an free open, prosperous, and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. So the area of Quad is restricted to Indo-Pacific region. It was developed or it was established in 2007 when Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe proposed the idea that Indo-Pacific region should be free from all external powers and their interferences. There are evidences that the idea of Quad was much proposed much earlier. As for the example, there was exercise Malvar conducted between India and US, and in 2004 when there was a tsunami hit on Indian Ocean, India offered humanitarian relief to all its neighboring countries. So with this, it was stated that there is a need for a security arrangement in the Indo-Pacific region, due to which in 2007, there was formation of quadrilateral security dialogue, Quad. So this is the idea behind Quad. So what are the objectives or the principles of Quad? There are 5 stated objectives of quadrilateral security dialogue. The first one is to ensure that strategic and important sea routes in Indo-Pacific region are free from any foreign military and political influence. So here, foreign or political influence denote particularly in context with China. Secondly, quadrilateral security dialogue ensures that Indo-Pacific region shall remain free, open, and prosperous as well as inclusive to all. Thirdly, it can ensure a liberal trading system along all allied nations and allow a free navigation in the Indian Ocean as well as Indo-Pacific region. Similarly, Quad shall ensure predatory trade and economic policies are countered properly. Lastly, Quad shall offer nations who are in debt with financial aid, especially the ones in Indo-Pacific region, can be supported with proper mechanism. So these are certain objectives or principles of Quad on which it is functioning. Now, how exactly Quad functions as a mechanism or as a security arrangement? So it should be reckoned here properly that unlike NATO, Quad is a loose grouping and it does not have its own formal alliance. There is no situated or proper decision-making body. There is no secretariat or there is no formal structure as it is in the case of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO does not have any decision-making body. It does not have any secretariat or any formal structure. NATO as an alliance is maintained through summits, meetings, and information exchange and military drills. So these are the ways through which Quad is functioning in present day. Since 2017-19, quadrilateral security dialogue has met 5 times. In 2018, New Delhi conducted Raisina dialogue, where the Navy chiefs of Japan, US, Australia, and India came together, and it was the revival of Quad as a security structure. Since 2021, Quad is hosting Leader Summit, and the summit usually is held online as well as in person in the nature. In 2021, due to COVID situation, Quad leaders met virtually for the first time. And in 2021, the first in-person meeting was held. So it was held in Japan. And This is how Quad is functioning nowadays. It is an informal institution. So what are the responses or what are the outcomes of Quad as a security dialogue? We can see that there are two types of outcome of Quad in present world.